Hey Frank, you're back from Gotham.
Whoa.
What happened to you?
Do not go there.
Oh, come on, it can't be that bad.
Peter, I'm warning you, man. They have this guy. He's like a clown.
You're scared of a clown? What are you, 5?
No, Peter. He's a homicidal maniac.
So are you. Okay. Can he fly?
No.
Is he super strong?
No.
Does he have any powers at all?
Well, no, but my point is, if I can't make it out there, you definitely can't.
Right. Spider-Man has to be the most glazed character behind Batman, and honestly, he deserves the praise more. While Bruce has plot armor for days, like when he was able to knock the wind out of Wonder Woman, insane. But Peter has actual powers, so most of the time I'm not complaining when he pops off. While Spider-Man fans can be even more obnoxious than Punisher fans, it doesn't change the fact that they are on completely 2 different levels. I mean, here you have Frank barely making a dent when Peter actually tries. He says, "I don't want to hurt you. Who do you think you are?" Now I'll try to avoid too many crossover or event bugs because you guys know how insane the power-ups get to make the story work. T'Challa, how the fuck are you dogging Silver Surfer right here? I'm just joking, the context actually makes a lot of sense here when you read the next few pages. While I will admit Peter has some bullshit moments here and there, he's usually holding back in these fights, and when he lets loose, it gets wicked. I understand his strength might not always be the most consistent thing there is, but I want to illuminate you all on a few key moments, and more importantly, how he would dog the fuck out of Gotham, starting with Bane. Bane, whether it be absolute or mainline, is probably the biggest hurdle physically for Peter. Not only is he way too damn strong, but he's also a martial artist, at least as good of one he can be at that size. I have no idea how he moves around so fast. I'll be discussing absolute Bane because not only is it top of mind, but mainline Bane is absolutely easy pickings for Peter. Dude lost a fight between a Batman with no gadgets and Catwoman. While I respect Selina on a combat level and pretty much nothing else, she isn't a real threat for most heroes. I do hate how they call Bane dumb in this comic. However, one of these days, most likely in the upcoming Tom King video, I'll discuss all my problems with his Batman run. When looking at the new Absolute run, it's a lot more charitable to Bane. He is a menace, truly the most terrifying villain we've seen so far in the comics. That might change with Absolute Joker, however. Earlier in the story, Batman struggles quite a bit fighting Bane the first time around. However, he did not fuck around the second time. Now, if you're one of the 3 people who hasn't read Absolute Batman yet, I'll give you a refresher. However, you should read it though, it's a fun time. Scott Snyder always knows how to hype up the audience every issue, but when Batman fights Bane the first time around, he had no clue what he was getting into, went in alone, and got embarrassed. I'd rather Bane just break his back again and call it there. The second and most likely final battle goes like this. So Batman baits Bane into a final battle between them in the middle of a stadium, but he low-key fights dirty in every way he can. He starts by crushing him under a building, which he survives from. Then Alfred uses the Batmobile to stab him, still he bounces back. And after Bruce tries to make a dent in him, he's cornered and my boy, honestly my favorite of his friends, Killer Croc, buys him some time. He downs Bane for a second, goading him this entire time to abuse his venom, and after Batman somehow tanks these blows that are crushing the ground, tells Catwoman to take the shot, and she says, "I got you, baby." Lord, I wish mainland Selina was like her. She would never stand Batman up at the altar. Bane taking too much venom pretty much ends the battle as his body turns into this. He gets dumped into the Gotham River, and then this is all that remains of him. Now Bruce only really wins here with the power of teamwork and the baddest bitch in Gotham. Could Peter raise up Selina and get her help to beat this freak of nature? Maybe. Don't underestimate him because he's nerdy. But more importantly is how Batman uses Bane's venom against him. Now I will say Batman and Spider-Man are both smart characters, and if you've seen my old video titled Batman Shouldn't Be the Best at Everything, you'll know I think Batman is good at chemistry and other sciences, but nowhere near the best. It makes the world feel more real and also fair when you can only spec into one stat at max capacity. Batman's one stat should always be being a detective, and then martial arts second. Peter, however, created his own web fluid that is core to his character, so in my mind, he should be able to do advanced chemistry, advanced enough to work with Bane's venom and perhaps counteract it. I think Batman is the more tactical person who would have an easier time setting up the trap for Bane, but if Spider-Man had to fight Bane, I strongly feel like he could develop an antidote to his venom. For an example of his chemistry know-how and how long it's been essential to his character, let's look at this comic. We're going back in the day to the 80s, where Peter is fighting against this forgotten villain by the name of Goldbug. He does exactly what you think he does, turns people into gold. He honestly reminds me a lot of Ted Corn Blue Beetle. He even has a bug-shaped ship. Now, Peter's university borrows some gold because he's doing some experiments. His research paper was so impressive that they gave him hundreds of thousands of dollars of gold. Of course, Goldbug needs that. After he puts all these people in a gold cocoon and leaves in his ship, Peter incredibly quickly develops a chemical to not only melt through the gold, but to leave the human skin unharmed. I'm not smart enough of a person to know how impressive that truly is, but it definitely leads me to believe that he could reverse engineer a steroid. While Spider-Man definitely has the science skills to beat Bane, when it comes to the physical battle, Peter would most likely be able to escape Arkham as he's fought Venom countless times, and Venom is also this incredibly strong regenerative villain. Would he be able to beat Bane on pure strength? I don't know, but I do think he's smart enough to realize the glowy green juice is giving him his powers and how to handle that. Moreover, Bane and the scientists he was working with were salivating at the idea of Bruce becoming his replacement. If he saw Peter, he'd lose his mind. This is most likely a 50-50 fight in the absolute universe, and in the main one, it's a wash. However, the more difficult fight for Peter is the one you expected, that is Joker, with all his ridiculous plot armor. No matter how you feel about Joker, he doesn't lose much, at least for long. It's actually illegal to make him lose a fight without some aura farming moments. Joker somehow survived this helicopter crash and returned less than a year later. I've said it before and I'll say it again, dude has some insane plot armor. Even though he shouldn't be able to stand a chance against Peter, if they were ever to cross over, you know how that would go. However, I want to go over a few things with Joker, his chemistry skills and Joker gas, his durability and strength, and probably the most obnoxious development in recent times, his genius level intellect. I've spoken about this a few times, but it really does represent everything wrong with modern Joker. During the whole R&R bullshit with Failsafe and Batman's mentor, we get into issue 146 of Batman 2016, where the most egregious level of Joker wank was put into an event designed to reinforce the idea that Joker is as intelligent, if not more intelligent, than Batman. Now, I always thought Joker was much dumber than Batman, just chaotic in nature. Like in my mind, it's easier to destroy something than to create it or even protect it. Whereas Joker doesn't need much intellect to improvise dangerous and cruel pranks for his amusement, Batman has to have considerably higher intellect to not only figure out what he's doing, but how to stop it, and more importantly, stop it without any casualties. However, as the stakes keep getting higher and higher, we need to power scale Joker. So it starts by recapping the history as we know it for Joker, how he came across some of Batman's contingency plans, and more importantly, how he activated Failsafe. Joker is able to create a chemical so advanced that it tricks Batman, the world's greatest detective, into thinking he killed someone. While I dislike making Joker the super genius character, I do have to say his chemistry skills have been a pretty consistent thing with him because of his iconic Joker gas. I always figured he'd have to know how to do a few things around the lab to be able to create so much of it. We could even see panels where he's described to be able to create the iconic gas just from common household cleaning agents. So while I think it's a little BS Joker can create a simulated death chemical, it's the least BS thing he's done in a while. Here comes the worst line here. Penguin was afraid Joker would kill him, but then the narration says this: Joker, despite his murderous tendencies, likes his playthings to live. If he didn't, we'd all be dead. Insane levels of jerking. I mean, unruly levels of dick riding. He was supposed to be the funny guy, and now he's God. They lay it on so thick with the next line saying, the two of you are the most dangerous men on the planet. Everyone lives because you simply haven't decided to kill them. Now, Batwank is one thing, but he at least spent years training with the best of the best. Joker just falls into a vat of acid and transforms into this Gary suit. Now that I've spoken about the chemistry know-how and intellect, let's talk about the most problematic thing with Joker, his superhuman and insane durability. Bruce, in my mind at least, takes supplements, steroids, drugs, and whatever training to keep his body in tip-top shape, and even then we can see all of his scars and damage. Joker can tank literally any beating from any member of the Bat family, and even though he is scrawnier, weaker, and should be more fragile than any regular goon, he somehow survives 10 times longer than them. So of course draw the plot out. This is why I really like the line in Joker's 5-Way Revenge, where after Batman tries to fight the Joker, he goes like, "You'll get no battle from me. I may be insane, but I'm not crazy. What a good joke, and honestly the right sentiment. However, I think Spider-Man should be able to easily beat the fuck out of Joker since Batman can. It's just a matter of how much plot armor he has to overcome. In the ideal world, this is a wash. It's a comic where Joker and Peter fight for the punchline. At the end, Joker is grumpy, everyone likes Peter's jokes more, and he gets webbed up. The most similar villain to Joker is Goblin probably, but Goblin has actual powers. I know people say Joker has enhanced durability from the acid, but Goblin is definitely tougher. I'll tell you who's tougher than both of them, however. It's DC's favorite island owner, Slade Wilson. I know, Slade is not a Batman rogue. He really shouldn't even be in Gotham. It's just that I spoke about him in the last video and I have him top of mind. More importantly, I'm thinking about doing a Taskmaster video, and these guys are relatively similar in their design. Only Taskmaster is actually pretty chill sometimes. I won't pretend that Slade's enhancements are able to match Spider-Man's powers. It does put him above Taskmaster in the physical arena, whereas Taskmaster is better at fighting because of his copycat power. I do want to quickly set the bar of how busted Deathstroke is sometimes. He's been able to dog the fuck out of Batman, his reaction speed somehow lets him be able to hit a speedster, and most surprisingly he's been able to draw blood from a Kryptonian-like being, Con Keenan. So he's not a pushover at all. When it comes to a 1v1 between the two, Spider-Man does have a hard time here and there with highly skilled fighters. Most people think his spider sense will fill in the gaps for him, but it's been shown to not work as well as you'd think. While a spider sense will always try to help him in battle, if someone else like Deathstroke can also react incredibly fast, it's a lot more even than you'd think. In Giant Size Spider-Man issue 2, we can see Peter fighting these martial arts goons, and he beats them but they get a few hits in. Then we cut to Shang-Chi fighting these Spider-Man branded goons, and of course he doesn't get hit. This is the problem with enemies who can outskill you and dodge your attacks. It's that even if you're stronger, faster, more durable than them, if they don't get hit, they can take all the time in the world to beat you. Some plot stuff happens, it doesn't matter, but Spider-Man and Shang-Chi finally fight. Shang-Chi gets the first hit, but Spider-Man recovers quicker than he expected and kicks him in the head. Then Peter gets tossed around by his ankles and slammed into this wall. The next panel has him dazed and confused. Shang-Chi tells Peter to surrender, and Spider-Man of course says no. Then we get a great back and forth. Shang-Chi strikes the wall, making this huge dent, and Spider-Man is like, that could have been my chest, man. Whacks him over the head and then misses the next one, letting Shang-Chi do another judo-like move. Now they both keep going like this for a while, back and forth, dodging and throwing each other. Peter webs him up and Shang-Chi breaks out of it. Peter avoids the fight as he figures out that they've been tricked. Then he purposely stands in the way of Shang-Chi's kick, hoping he'd surrender, and he does. Now this comic was before a lot of the power scaling stuff Shang-Chi had, so he was maybe peak human, I'd say, comparable to modern Deathstroke, maybe even less powerful. But even then, Spider-Man says if that kid connected, they'd be scraping him off the walls. Even though Frank can't make a dent in Spidey, I think Slade might have better chances. For now, I put the odds closer to Peter winning, just because these days he has some pretty impressive tech, and if he brings anything outside of his standard web shooters, it's wraps. Now we've spoken about his strength, durability, intellect, and reflexes. I want to talk a bit more about his psyche. How would Spider-Man fare against fear gas? Scarecrow is a villain people underestimate because truthfully he's been made a little bit obsolete. Scarecrow has fear gas, okay, we have Joker gas. Scarecrow has these psychological mind games, so does Hugo Strange, and he does them a lot better. Scarecrow's fear gas in my mind should be made much stronger than Joker's, mainly because he doesn't have much outside of that. Now if you've played the Arkham games, you know how obnoxious it must be to fight under the influence of it. However, Spider-Man fights against a similar kind of villain, Mysterio. While Mysterio doesn't poison you, he does confuse you with his illusions, in the same way Scarecrow's fear gas can make you see things that aren't really there. Whether it be in the movies, games, or comics, Spider-Man has been able to fight out of that consistently. Here in this panel he has these lenses that are giving him a look into what's actually happening with Mysterio's illusions, so even if his spider sense went haywire again, his tech skill should be able to fill in those gaps. Now to give his spider sense some credit here, let's look at Web of Spider 2009. In this 3-part story we have this random villain named the Extremis. Really weird design, but I kind of like it. Basically the dude can become invisible, intangible, and is completely insane. Now what's funny is this guy breaks into Peter's apartment pissed off and says, "Maggots, you are not fit to lick Spider-Man's boots, much less take his picture." Dude is the biggest Spider fanboy, and honestly I can't blame him. Michelle, Peter's roommate, is like, "Look out," because she can see him, but Peter, even with a gun pressed to his head, can't notice him. Then at the last possible second, he dodges what looks like a laser-based weapon instantly. That feat is insane. Now you should read this 3-issue story. He's a very unique and strange villain. He's super into Spider-Man. He even says that he's the ideal man at one point. The dick riding is crazy. So if Peter can dodge lasers with his sense, he can definitely dodge whatever weak-ass punches Scarecrow throws. However, after Bane and Joker, there aren't really too many villains in Gotham I think Peter needs to be afraid of. The only one I can think of is strangely similar to a villain he faces often. Let's talk about Clayface. Clayface is definitely one of Batman's most durable rogues. In some iterations where he's not the main big bad, he can get taken out fairly quickly with electricity. However, in the comics, it's not as cut and dry. I spoke about Feet of Clay in the Punisher video, but in that fight he gets bombed multiple times, frozen by liquid nitrogen, and the only way he loses is by Poison Ivy doing some magic green bullshit. Moreover, his durability is stupid. Most Clayface appearances have him taking no damage from physical attacks for the most part. Here we have Supergirl or Kryptonian, barely making a dent. Another time while he was disguised as Cheetah, he was taking hits from Wonder Woman. Now, with Peter's plan of attack probably being the same he'd use for Venom, it's important to see how those fights usually go. Because Peter is such a talkative and comedic hero, Venom gets distracted in fights and is easily angered with Peter's jokes, and loses because of a weakness like sound or fire depending on the comic. Now, what I find interesting is how dysfunctional Eddie and Venom can be. There are times where Venom just ditches Eddie outright. Ouch. While Clayface is lucky he doesn't have this problem, he still has some weaknesses, mainly really hot fire or liquid nitrogen. I do think Spider-Man would lose in a random encounter, but depending on the amounts and types of spider gadgets he has, he could either win or just escape to concoct a good plan. And truthfully, depending on the Clayface, he isn't that smart. If Peter can use his science know-how to dissolve his clay, he'll lose immediately. Overall, I don't really see how Peter doesn't clear out Gotham if we're talking about the main universe and the main rogues. I didn't touch on people like Penguin for obvious reasons, the Riddler because Joker is as smart as he is these days. Unfortunately, I didn't touch on the magic characters because I don't like magic that much. I enjoy power scaling a little more than I'd like to admit, but magic is impossible to understand. I don't know how impressive the feats are, I don't know the weaknesses. Doctor Strange can either be the most powerful guy in the universe or straight fodder, I don't know. If you guys have any other characters that should run the gauntlet, or any villains that I missed here, I always like talking about Batman's rogues. Next video I think I want to be titled What Marvel Missed About Taskmaster, basically going over his comic appearances, his skills, personality, stories, etc. Just comparing what we got in the movies and what he's supposed to be like in the comics. I also want to do a redo of my really old Hulk video because he's one of my favorite characters and Marvel butchered him. Specifically the She-Hulk scene where she berates him on how she's had the harder life. You don't even need to know the comics to know how insane that is. Canonically, Bruce Banner tried to kill himself in the movies. I want to give another huge shout out to my boy Cable and all the other members. I have 2 videos up now, but I will be talking about the time Flash got sued next. Wade's run is a lot of fun for me and I think you guys will enjoy that. Let me know if you think that Bane is a Spider-Man victim or Spider-Man the Bane victim. But thanks for watching, peace.